Yes, it is difficult to protect the rights of property as against persons. Persons are property owners. Generally what happens is, whether you're talking about slaves and slave owners or animal exploiters and animals, is you're talking about a conflict between a property owner and a piece of property. And you say, well, we've got to balance the interests of these two entities. That's a rather bizarre thing to even think about conceptually. Animals are commodities. They only have the value that we give them. Look, for example, at the history of slavery in this country. There were many laws that protected human slaves. Many, many laws. And how much protection did those laws provide? Well, close your eyes. What do you see? That's generally the level of protection that slaves got from slave welfare laws, because courts were called on to adjudicate conflicts between property owners and their property. And there were even courts that said, look, if we're going to have slavery as an institution, it's got to be the case that the slave can't feel that there's an appeal from the judgment of the master, or else slavery doesn't exist as an institution. There were laws that prohibited the gratuitous killing of a slave. You could kill your slave for all sorts of reasons, but there were laws that prohibited the gratuitous killing of your slave. But there were also laws, for example, that said that if you gratuitously killed your slave, you must be temporarily insane, because only somebody temporarily insane would damage an expensive piece of property like a slave. So you've got on one hand a law that says you can't gratuitously kill your slave, but then you've got another law that says if you do gratuitously kill your slave, it's because you were temporarily insane, so you're not liable. So, there were lots of laws that protected slaves. They didn't provide any protection for slaves, any meaningful protection for slaves. Because in every situation in which there was a conflict, you've got to figure out whose interests matter more, the interests of the property owner or the interests of the property. The relationship of property to property owner is, this is mine. I get to determine what its value is. And so I think that, I think it's very, very difficult to talk about balancing the interests of persons who are property owners as against property. Yeah, I think it's conceptually nonsense, actually.